Hello, and welcome to another episode of Solipsist Rambles, where this week I wanted to spend an episode talking about a game I haven't actually played on the show, because I think it's an interesting subject that I see played a lot, but not talked about a lot, or at least not in the ways I would expect or hope. So I want to talk about the game No, I'm Not a Human, which currently at the time of recording is rather popular, or at least in some circles of streaming and recording, YouTube and Twitch and those sorts of things. And I think it's a really interesting game, and I think it's actually a more interesting game than people are giving it credit for, despite the fact that it is quite popular. I really like literary analysis and interpretation of writing, and that applies, as if you're a longtime viewer, you'll know that applies to a lot of different media, whether it's actual, prose itself, or whether it's video games or movies or any other kind of thing. And while I recognize it's not everybody's cup of tea, not everybody's interest, or not even within everybody's ability to do that sort of thing, I think it's always an interesting thing to just sort of throw out there as a prompt to get people thinking and maybe talking about it themselves, and maybe being more interested in how their media is structured. So I actually have watched a couple of different people play this game, and people who I normally listen to their takes on the content of the things they play or whatever, and usually think they have pretty good takes. But in most cases so far, I have seen a lot of people not really have much of an interpretation of this game. And for that matter, doing a cursory search, I really haven't seen a lot of videos or really any discussion about the content of the game, or, well, I'll get to it, but the content that I have seen has not been promising. Actually, I guess we could get to that right off the bat. I like literary analysis, but what I have seen happen instead of literary analysis for video games, and I mean this with the utmost respect that I can muster, is the game theorification of video games, where everybody gets, in the pop culture, tends to get very focused on lore when the game may or may not have lore, and focused on theory crafting, which often immediately devolves into just making stuff up that has no basis on the actual content of the game. This is not an inherently evil thing. It can be fun. That's the same kind of creative process that's necessary for writing. And so if you want to expand upon a piece of media, I think the more power to you. But there are a lot of the videos, of what limited videos I have seen about this game, appear to be, or the ones I've clicked on as well, have been mostly exactly that, where it is more about like, oh, don't you want to get into the lore of this game? And it's like, no, man, this game's not about lore at all. You don't need lore. That isn't the point. And I genuinely kind of befuddled how people think that's the point. I think that's worse than what most of what I see is, which is mostly just people taking it at face value, which again is totally fine. If you want to play a kind of spooky game that is unsettling and has lots of weirdos and sort of the threat of a monster, then that's all you have to take from it if you want. But I think this game is really interesting because of what it says, or what it comments on, about how humans relate to each other. And I think it's right there in the title to say, no, I'm not a human. It's open for interpretation in a lot of different ways, and I think there are multiple valid interpretations of the title, but I think it's sort of saying from the very start, from the very title, that the premise is inherently kind of an inversion. On its surface, the title seems to say this is about things pretending to be human and trying to infiltrate human situation in order to do their evil deeds or whatever. And instead, I find that this game is much, much more about how humans relate to each other and the evils and sort of lack of care, lack of empathy, lack of care that can be given to other humans with great ease. And I think that stands out in the writing. Now, as I understand it, this was not originally written in English. It was written in Russian. I don't know whether the developers themselves did the translation or whether somebody else did. But I think I'm going to go off the English translation of this because I think the English translation is very, very good. At least it leads to a certain, my interpretation of it. And I don't know, I can't speak towards whether the original Russian is comparative, is reads the same sort of way culturally and socially. I'm just going to have to assume that it does. I'm going to be generous and assume the translation's accurate. So I think before we get started talking about this a little bit more, I should explain the premise of the game a little bit, just in case you haven't played it, or just, as a recap. The core of the game loop is basically that something terrible has happened. Something outside has turned the sun weird, and it kills people if it shines on them. And so everybody's forced inside during the daytime, and everybody is sort of more active at night. Humans are more active at night. At the same time, there is this invasion of these visitors, they call them, some sort of monsters that are hunting people and doing who knows what to them, and you don't really get a good idea of what exactly they do, what level of threat they have, what one looks like. It's all very nebulous, and that is, to my view, very, very deliberate. Because the play of the game is basically you need to keep strangers inside your house. You live alone, but you need to keep people inside your house because if you're alone, that's what makes the visitors find you a tasty morsel and then they come get you. That's the basic premise. The gameplay loop is having people come to your door, ask for shelter, and you have to determine whether or not you want to help them. Whether or not you want to invite them into your home, to trust them enough to, for whatever reason, to be in your space and to share protection with you. Because being around other humans is supposed to be other protection. But what actually, it looks glaringly obvious to me, but seems to apparently not have been interpreted that way. This is very much a game instead about how you relate to people that you don't know, people that you don't understand, and people who may seem strange to you for whatever reason. Throughout the game, you are given various hints from various sources about what visitors do, what they're like, what traits they have, to help you, at least on the surface, identify people who are coming to your door who are visitors trying to get in. But in reality, it's, again, pretty glaringly obvious to me that this is an intention from the game narrative perspective. This is meant to throw doubt, not to help you. If it was meant to help you, it would be more clear, it would be more distinctive, it would be more firm, but it isn't, and that's on purpose. And all of the qualities, I've not seen every single, the game is randomized. I have not seen every single NPC that there is. I have not seen every single trait that can be triggered as one of the potential identifiers of a visitor. So I don't have a comprehensive view on it, but everything I saw is, here's another trait that is a totally normal trait that a normal human could just have. People in real life have these qualities, whether it's bloodshot eyes or straight teeth or whatever. And that to me was, like, from the very first run, made it glaringly obvious to me that this was deliberately bad information. Whether or not it's actually accurate in the world, I mean, it is accurate within the game. Like, it can be a sign marker for a visitor, but it is not a firm one. And that's sort of the point. The game says to you, it delivers these pieces of information to you in ways that make them seem very undeniable. This is mostly through the television reporting. And this is also, in a way, a side note, a commentary on the media and sensationalist reporting and reporting, imperfect information. So you have something saying, even in the game doesn't have a TV reporter that's being sensationalist, but they state everything with a level of conviction that makes them seem to have some authority, when really they never caveat anything to say, oh, but normal humans could also have these traits, so don't just go doing stuff, or don't judge too harshly. But to me, that's the subtext throughout the whole game, because you are going to run into a lot of different NPCs. I mean, multiple a day, plus whoever's in your house, who may have these traits. And as I said, they're completely normal things, mostly for a human to have. It's not necessarily indicative that they are a visitor or that they're weird at all. But that's the other part of this, is everybody present in this game is a character. Every NPC is one of the weirdest people you've ever seen or heard in your life. They all have strange proportions, stretched out faces. They all look really worn down by the world. This is sort of a post-apocalyptic kind of thing already, so everybody's already worn out, but also people just look like they've been. The art style is deliberate to make everybody look as strange as possible. And then the way each character speaks to you, the oddness of whether it's the way they talk, the things they talk about, the things that they think are important. There are moments where you have to go, this person's crazy, but they're probably fine. I should invite them in. And that's the thing. The most obvious one is the visuals, and obvious. That's a commentary to me on how you can look at somebody who you find visually unappealing and make an assumption about them, that they are somehow a bad person, or like, in this context, it's, hey, your face looks funny. Are you a visitor? Which is the most like overt version of, judging somebody based on their appearance. But it gets further and further down as you go. The things people talk about, whether they have beliefs about what's going on around them, even whether they have their own like plans for what they're about to do, what is going to happen to them over the course of the next couple of days. Whether they intend to leave, whether they have, other people who they intend to meet up with, or whatever. And there's a couple of other events that come up that I won't talk about because I don't want to spoil anything. But these all lead back to this same sort of premise of, there's lots of people around you who might seem really weird if you judge them at face value. And maybe this is just a matter of going back to the things we all allegedly learned in kindergarten about the golden rule, and treating people how you want to be treated, and not judging a book by its cover, and all these other adages and sort of trite sayings. But so many of them are true, and especially when the context for a game like this has obviously been influenced by the experiences of individuals just in normal life, as well as the trials and tribulations of the last 5 years in particular. events that have kept people inside, have made people more paranoid, have made people less trusting of people that they don't know or don't understand or who look different than them. These are all abundantly obvious to me as things that this game is trying to make you think about. It's not trying to be a commentary. It's letting you take everything at face value and not ever pushing anything. And I think maybe that's why I'm not seeing anybody really talk about it. Because never does it say like, oh, you made a mistake because you judged somebody by their face. It just lets you have whatever interpretation. I've also seen some people say that the game is boring or like the gameplay loop is bad or something like that. And to that, I feel like this is another good reminder that games don't always have to be games, so to speak. I am certainly critical when I think a game has poor gameplay or whatever, but not every game needs to check every single box for what you imagine a game to be. Obviously, there are varying tastes for what a game can be, and this is very much, to me, on the artistic side of things. I think, unfortunately, it's fallen into a well of popularity where it is mostly being picked up by the type of people who think they're picking up just another horror, spooky game for the spooky times, and instead are getting a game that's really not that scary. But one that wallows in atmosphere, one that isn't asking you to make quick decisions. It's not asking you to really do a whole lot. Your day-to-day, your everyday in the game is very simple. It's a simple loop because the game's focus is on the people. It's on the atmosphere that you create about it. It's so up to interpretation how scared you want to be about a situation. And it's been interesting to watch some different people play it and the drastically different ways they interpret the same people saying the same things under different circumstances and what it says about people as they play it, not to overanalyze some people, but some people take it really very much in stride of just like, yeah, this is the situation we're in, we'll deal with it. And some people are screaming every time there's a knock at the door. In some cases, they're playing that up because it's YouTube and they do that. But in some cases, it's like, no, some people are just actually very freaked out by everything that happens in the game. And I don't think any of those are invalid interpretations, unless you're playing it for the camera. Just have a normal time. Anyway, I don't need to go on a diatribe on that. But I really like this game and I really appreciate what it's doing, and I don't think it's getting appreciation it deserves, at least in this certain way. And I don't think that I'm suddenly going to start a bunch of people realizing that, oh, this is an amazing art game. But I think there's a lot more depth to it, talking about what people are like to each other than is taken when you just take it at face value. It's a fantastic, it's some of the most immersive sort of emergent gameplay that I've seen in a long time. And maybe it's not going to keep you engaged for a super long time, and maybe it's not going to scare you half to death like you might have wanted. And maybe, maybe you just don't care about narrative or character interaction or any of that. But to me, that's where so much of the intrigue of life lies, that I love to see a game that wants to take a subject a little bit seriously and make a serious art piece out of it, rather than, just taking another copy pasta and turning it into a hit game. Anyway, I don't need to get into that. Yeah, if this is up your alley and the themes I'm talking about seem interesting, then maybe check it out, because I think it's worth a watch or worth a play. Anyway, thank you guys for watching another Solipsist Rambles. And I'll see you for, well, a non-spooky one probably next time.